Good
And
evening.
we're live.
Wonderful. Good evening and welcome to the October 18th, 2023 Mercer Island Arts Council regular video meeting. The time is now 5:32. I'm Elizabeth Mitchell, Chair of the Arts Council. Tonight's Arts Council meeting is being brought to you by Zoom. The video of this meeting is being broadcast live via Zoom and will be uploaded to the city's YouTube channel later this week. City staff, liaisons to the Arts Council, and other panelists are also participating in tonight's meeting remotely. Other public audience members may be listening to the meeting by telephone or online. Additionally, the city has opened up the community center to provide public space for viewing and participating in the meeting. Welcome to all, and thank you for joining us tonight. Board members, please ensure that your microphones are turned on for the roll call. Will staff please call the roll?
See, we forgot that to coordinate who was calling roll. Give me just one moment and I will call the roll, Chair.
No problem.
Let's see. Chair Mitchell.
Present.
Vice Chair Scone. Is not present. Councillor Yoon.
Present.
Councillor Gibson.
Present.
Councillor Harrington. Not present. Councillor Becker.
Present.
And Councillor Moore. It's not. Councillor Moore is also not present. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We would also like to welcome members from the other city advisory boards and commissions who are joining us tonight. The first and only item on tonight's agenda is the parliamentary procedure training, and we welcome the city clerk, Andrea Larson.
Thank you, Chair. For the record, I'm Andrea Larson, your city clerk. I'd like to welcome you to the training tonight and introduce our trainer. We have to welcome Anne McFarland from Jurassic Parliament. Anne McFarland majored in Russian and Ancient Greek at the University of California, Santa Cruz. She received a Marshall Scholarship awarded by the British government and earned a second degree at Cambridge University in England. She then joined the U.S. Foreign Service, serving as a diplomat in Pakistan and on the Soviet desk of the U.S. State Department. After marrying fellow Foreign Service officer Lou McFarland, Anne became a stay-at-home mom in the Congo, Tanzania, and Nepal. On returning to Seattle, Anne became a Russian translator and was elected president of the American Translators Association. Since developing Jurassic Parliament in 2000, she trains elected officials, staff, and nonprofit board members across the nation. Anne is a professional registered parliamentarian. With Andrew Estep, she is the author of Mastering Council Meetings. I've had the pleasure of working with Anne for many years throughout the Washington Municipal Clerks Association, and I have the pleasure of welcoming here tonight to give this wonderful training to you guys. And I will turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Andrea. I'm thrilled to be here with you all because Robert's Rules of Order and Jurassic Parliament is one of my favorite things in the entire universe. But if you say to most people, oh, let's spend a quiet Wednesday evening studying Robert's Rules, you'll have a really good time. It's like saying you're going to enjoy your root canal procedure next week. So thank you all for being bold enough and brave enough to come. And I'm going to share my PowerPoint here. And there is a handout that gives the PDF of these slides. If you are somebody who likes to take notes, you're welcome to do that, but you don't have to have it in order to take this presentation. So our topic tonight is Great Citizen Advisory Meetings. And I'm just adjusting my Zoom. Here we go. And we are going to cover quite a lot. So we'll have a brief introduction. We'll talk about meeting discussion, point of order and appeal, how to do this, motions and amendments, the authority and role of the chair, the members and the staff, Citizen Advisory Committee pitfalls, public comment, and the right kind of control. So I'm going to start by saying, why are we here? What's the point? My goal today is to invigorate you to run effective meetings to serve your community. I know your meetings are effective, and yet sometimes we can also get a fresh burst of energy from a new way of looking at meetings that invigorates us, and I hope that will happen. After taking this training, you'll be able to apply the principle that the authority of the group is more important than any single individual, even the chair. You'll be able to follow best practices for discussion, to respond to disorder or difficult people, to make motions and amendments, to avoid common citizen advisory pitfalls, and to run effective public comment sessions. I quickly want to say that the material contained in this presentation is based on the principles and practices of parliamentary procedure. I'm not an attorney, and nothing in this presentation constitutes legal advice. If your attorney tells you something different, listen to your attorney. So we're going to be in the League of Northwest Dino Cities. It's not entirely realistic, it's a fantasy, but there's some overlap with real life, and you're going to be the members of the Bonnie Dino Planning Commission. So here's a map of the League. My late husband and I had a lot of fun creating these 70 cities, each of which has its own project, and we're in Bonnie Dino down here on the West Coast. So it's the regular meeting, and the motto of Bonnie Dino is, we do our best for all our residents, whether we like them or not. So the first thing you're going to do at a meeting is call the meeting to order. You sit in the chair that's reserved for the person running the meeting. Chair here has two meanings. One is the physical object on which you sit, and one is you as the person running the meeting. This goes back to medieval times when only princes or potentates had a chair. Everybody else had to either stand or sit on benches. So you sit on the chair, you rap the gavel lightly one time if you have them, and you announce this meeting of the Bonnie Dino Planning Commission is called to order. You ask the clerk to take the roll, and you announce that a quorum is present or not. So it's the chair's duty to announce the quorum. Quorum is the minimum number of voting members who must be present for business to be done. For local governments, usually it's a majority, more than half, of the fixed positions in the body. So if your commission has 9 members, a quorum is going to be 5. And if 2 of them have resigned, your quorum is still going to be 5 because it's a majority of the fixed positions. Quorum is different from votes cast. Quorum is a passive condition, but votes cast is an active condition that allows you to take action. And if you lose your quorum, you can't do business. And in our view, that includes listening to reports or hearing from citizens. Those are all things that should be done only when you have a quorum. Local government bodies must not create a walking quorum or a serial meeting. When members of the body talk or email with each other outside of meetings, such that a quorum is discussing the body's business, the Open Public Meetings Act has been violated. You can talk to other people as long as the total number involved is less than a quorum. And this happened in my home city of Shoreline, where some years ago, member A sent an email to B, and B sent one to C, and C sent one to D, and boom, they had 4 people discussing city business. They actually were brought to court and fined, personal fines, for violating the Open Meeting Act. The agenda is prepared by the leadership, but it's within the control of the body, subject to notice requirements, of course. And Robert's Rule says that if you follow the standard order of business, you don't need to vote to adopt an agenda. But many bodies do vote. It takes a majority vote to adopt and a 2/3 vote to change it later in the meeting. So do you all vote to adopt your agendas? Nope. Okay, it's not necessary.
Only city council.
Only city council. Very good. So I just want to mention that according to Robert's Rules, the purpose of minutes is to record the action taken by the body. Minutes record what is done and not what is said. We recommend action or summary minutes, not detailed minutes. And as I believe your minutes are good in this regard, because putting in he said and she said is just a waste of time. Detailed minutes are a bad idea because it violates the fundamental purpose of minutes. It can create liability for the organization. It tends to personalize and politicize the discussion. It can intimidate participants. It absorbs too much staff time, and it makes it harder to find the actions taken. So we've just published an article on the MRSC website, Less is More. So if you have any bodies that you know that contest this view, you can show them these arguments. MRSC, formerly called the Municipal Research and Services Center, is a private nonprofit organization in Washington State that provides advice to local government bodies. And so this is our paper, Guidelines for Meeting Minutes in Local Government. And I'll send this to you. I'll send Andrea a packet of reference materials after the session where you'll find these various items. So any questions so far? Okay, let's look at meeting discussion, point of order, and appeal. So we're going to start with an exercise. I'm going to ask for volunteers to read parts in a little script about raising the parking fee. And as we read through this, I'd like you to watch for rules for discussion, inappropriate remarks, point of order, and appeal, these two motions, and the chair being out of line. And I'm going to be the chair, so I can assure you she'll be out of line. Now, in real life, members must be recognized by the chair before speaking. But in this script, the numbers take the place of recognition. We don't bother with that. We just read through in the interest of time. So the script is only reading, no improvisation is required. And I need volunteers who are willing to take these different roles. Is anybody willing to be the banker, the elderly member, the environmentalist, that's the juiciest role, the photographer, or the teacher? Don't speak up all at once.
I promise it's not scary and it's not hard.
Thank you, Andrea.
I'll be the banker.
Okay. JB is the banker.
I'll be the photographer.
Nicole is the photographer.
You said the environmentalist is the juiciest part.
Yes.
Okay, I want that one.
Okay, so Elizabeth will be the environmentalist.
So what do you have left?
We need
Teacher.
an elderly member and a teacher.
I'll be the teacher.
Very good. Thank you, Marie.
I'll be the elderly member.
Thank you, Marcia. Great. So I'm going to stop sharing this and call up the script. Here we go. And then I'll share that. Can everybody see that? Parking fees in Bonnie Dino. Is it showing?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, I'll make it a little bit bigger. So, as you know, there is continuing pressure on our parking spaces in the downtown areas of the city of Bonnie Dino. The staff has reviewed the matter carefully. Our current rate is $2 per hour. The staff recommends that the Planning Commission propose to Council that the new fee be set at $20 per hour. Does anyone care to make that motion?
I move that the Planning Commission propose to Council that the parking fee be set at $20 an hour.
Second.
Very well, it's been moved and seconded that the commission propose to Council that the parking fee be set at $20 per hour. We will now have discussion on this motion. Environmentalist, as the maker of the motion, you have the right to speak first.
Well, I'm a believer in public transportation myself. I think that this increase will lessen congestion and also force more people to take buses or walk. It's a good idea for the environment and for our city.
Further discussion? The chair recognizes the elderly member.
I think this is a terrible idea. We've just learned that we have 10 million surplus. Why would we increase the parking fee and burden our residents this way?
Do you know that the parking fees in most cities of the league are $15 an hour? We are so far below market. It's ridiculous.
Well, that's not a reason to go crazy and lay this burden on our residents. Many elderly dinosaurs are feeling the pinch. Our current tough economic times have hit them really hard.
There's no point being an old softy and begging for sympathy for the down and out. If they had an ounce of gumption, they would have saved up for their old age. This is really terrible.
What a hard-hearted comment. Someday you might be old and wrinkled and poor yourself. Have you no compassion?
All I have to say about that is nonsense, applesauce, and balderdash.
Point of order.
State your point.
These members are monopolizing this discussion. Under Robert's rules, no one can speak a second time until everyone who wishes to do so has spoken once.
The point is well taken. Everyone must have an equal chance. Thank you, Banker. Further discussion?
This is likely to put a crimp on the vitality of our downtown. As a business owner, I'm really concerned about this. I speak against this motion.
I see those arguments, but I think we have to be prudent. I guess on balance, I'm in favor of this proposal.
Honestly, I think you dinosaurs are just living in the past. We ought to be preparing to have driverless cars, not raising the rates on our parking lots. You're just a bunch of has-beens.
Point of order, Chair.
State your point.
This is an insulting remark. According to Robert's Rules of Order, all of us are obliged to speak with courtesy and respect, including the chair.
Oh, the point is well taken. The chair apologizes for her remarks. Further discussion?
In my opinion, the commission is clueless. We have our heads stuck in the concrete. Given the way the stock market is trending, our surplus could just disappear. I hope everyone will agree to raise those rates.
You know, I've heard better discussions in my daughter's kindergarten class. It's clear that we don't have the sharpest knives in the kitchen drawer here.
Point of order.
State your point.
The members are insulting all of us by those remarks.
The chair will rule that the comments are indeed insulting. Members will kindly refrain from such improper statements.
I have to say that I don't think all these rules are a good idea. They are keeping us from expressing our true opinions. You're out of date, dinosaur yourself, Chair.
The chair will rule that the words out of date dinosaur are insulting and may not be used.
Appeal.
Second.
Very well, the ruling of the chair has been appealed and seconded, so the members will decide. The chair has ruled that the words out of date dinosaur are insulting. All those who believe that this ruling is correct and should be sustained, say aye.
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 All those who believe that the ruling should not be sustained, say no.
No.
The ayes have it, the motion passes, and the ruling of the chair is sustained. Members may not use this term. Clerk, kindly record this outcome in the minutes. Is there further discussion?
If we do this, the residents are likely to come and throw eggs at our houses, or even worse. I'm dead against it.
Thank you. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll take the vote. All those in favor of proposing to council that the parking fee be raised to $20 per hour, say aye.
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 All those opposed, say no.
No.
The ayes have it, the motion passes, and we will propose to council that the parking fees be raised to $20 per hour. So thank you, and thank you for doing such a great job on reading that. I have to say that an exchange like that should never happen in your council meetings, and I'm sure that it never does. But just in case, let's look at a few things. First, we're going to look at the principle of equality. This is a fundamental basic principle in Robert's Rules. All members have equal rights, privileges, and obligations. It's very easy to say, it's not so easy to do. And the key point that follows is that discussion in committee and commission meetings is not a conversation. It's not a conversation. It has its own rules. And so we come to our fundamental guideline. No one may speak a second time until everyone who wishes to do so has spoken once. Oh, this is so important. I'm going to give it to you in red. No one may speak a second time until everyone who wishes to do so has spoken once. It is a great rule and a transformative rule, but we don't follow it. Committees and commissions tend to discuss their affairs in conversational mode. In conversations, dominant people tend to dominate and agreeable people tend to let them. You must have a structure to make sure that everyone has an equal chance to speak, and this is both fair and efficient. It's also the best way to ensure that each person has an equal voice. There's a real paradox here. Robert's Rules gets a bad rap, out of date, patriarchal, 19th century, But in fact, if you follow this rule, it is your best chance for real inclusion, that everyone has a voice. And it's a kind of a paradox. It makes for robust discussion and will advance your equity goals. Now, note that this guideline pertains to discussion on the substantive issues. The chair will speak more than others on procedural matters because they have the role of facilitating the discussion during the meeting. Now, if that doesn't happen, the chair should intervene. But sometimes the chair doesn't intervene and it's a hockey match. And if that is the case, a member can make a point of order. Point of order, again, is something that seems esoteric and out of date, but it's a fabulous and a wonderful motion. And in our Jurassic Parliament system, we represent it by a flying dinosaur. So the T-Rex stands for the main motion, raise the parking fees. We're discussing and debating this motion, and somebody makes a point of order. It flies over the head of the T-Rex, and the chair bats it out of the sky. That's how it works. So when another member breaks one of the rules, a member may make a point of order, and the chair rules on the point. Point of order is a motion claiming that a procedural mistake has been made. Now, according to Robert's rules, it can only be made by a member of the body, but we recommend that key staff be authorized also. And the public may not raise a point of order. If you have somebody standing up at your meetings and shouting point of order from the audience, they are out of order. So let's have a little example of this.
Point of order.
State your point.
That comment breaks our rules of decorum.
The point is well taken. Members may not use this term.
So you see, it's very, very simple. Point of order, state your point. That remark breaks our rules of decorum. The point is well taken. Members may not use this term. Or the chair can rule that the point is not well taken. Now, you can make this motion at any time except during voting. You don't have to be recognized. You actually may interrupt a speaker if necessary. You don't want to do that lightly, but you can. But it must be timely. This is something everybody forgets. You have to make the point of order at the time of the offense. You can't bring it up an hour or a day later. So we recommend using the third person to keep things neutral and lessen conflict. The chair states the general rule. It's like you're the voice of Robert. You don't say you're out of order. You don't say you made a mistake, because that immediately personalizes and antagonizes the participants. Another key thing to know is that if you're not sure, you can always ask the group. The chair doesn't have to decide the matter. Here's an example. That statement is just a bunch of baloney. Point of order, state your point. The word baloney is insulting. The chair is in doubt and will ask the group to decide. All those who believe that the word baloney is insulting say aye. All those who believe it is not insulting say no. The ayes have it, the word baloney is insulting and may not be used, or the noes have it, the word baloney is not insulting and may be used. Harry S. Truman famously said, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. Well, this is a great way to get out of the kitchen and turn it over to the group, to your commission or committee. The chair doesn't have to say point of order. The chair already has the duty of maintaining order and decorum, so the chair just needs to take appropriate action. And the chair is subject to the same rules as we saw in the little skit. If the chair breaks one of the rules, a member may make a point of order. And the chair rules on their own behavior, which seems really odd, but that's the way the system works. Now, why do you make a point of order? Make a point of order if a rule has been broken. Do not make a point of order because you think someone has made a factual mistake or you disagree with what they said. You speak about that when it's your turn to discuss. So once the chair has ruled on a point of order, the only allowable form of discussion is to appeal the ruling. An appeal, in our view, is the most important motion in all of Robert's rules and the least known. Very few people know about appeal. The chair enforces order and decorum, but the group is the final authority. And any two members can appeal a ruling of the chair. One member appeals and one seconds the appeal. There is an exception If the ruling is a matter on which there cannot be two reasonable interpretations, the ruling cannot be appealed. If your bylaws say that a member can serve 1 year as chair, and someone nominates the current chair for a second year, and the chair says, no, that motion is out of order because of our bylaws, you cannot appeal that. So here's an example of appealing a ruling of the chair. Point of order, state your point. My esteemed colleague has used the term cream-faced loon in referring to the secretary. According to Robert's rules, insults are not allowed in debate. The point is well taken. Members will refrain from using improper language. Chair, I appeal the point of order on the grounds that cream-faced loon is a literary reference from Shakespeare and not an insult. Second, very well, since the ruling of the chair has been appealed, the group will decide. Note that appeals pertaining to proper use of language and decorum may not be debated. Isn't that a good rule? We'd be here all night if we could argue about whether it's correct or not. All those who believe that cream-faced loon is an insult say aye. All those who believe that this phrase is not an insult say no. The ayes have it. The ruling of the chair is sustained and members may not use this term, or the noes have it. The ruling of the chair is not sustained and members may use this term. Clerk, please record this outcome in the minutes. That's because it becomes precedent for the future. Now, notice something a little odd. The vote is whether the ruling of the chair should be sustained. It feels as if it should be the other way around, as if we should be voting on whether the person making the appeal is correct, but that's not it. You're voting on whether the chair's ruling is correct. So point of order is made by one member, but an appeal needs a second. Point of order and appeal are processed immediately. That's why we use these flying dinosaurs. They come up and you just bat them down. No other business can take place until they're dealt with. And points of order and appeals do not count against a member's turn to speak in debate. They're not part of debate. So we believe that point of order and appeal are the heart of democracy. The heart of democracy. They are the essence of how it is that the group is the final authority and no single person can become a tin pot dictator. And again, this paper, Point of Order and Appeal are the Heart of Democracy, will be in your reference material packet. So are there any questions about this section, about section 2? All right, we'll charge ahead, but if something comes up later, you can certainly let me know. So how are we going to do this? How are we going to achieve our goal? We have 6 suggestions for you. Seek recognition before speaking. No one may speak a second time till everyone who wishes to do so has spoken once. No interrupting. No sidebar conversations. Set time limits, and courtesy and respect are required. So this is just critical. You cannot have people blurting stuff out. Members must seek recognition. You raise your hand and you wait to speak until the presider calls your name, nods at you, or gives some other sign that you have permission, that you have the floor. Online, you can use the raise hand function or raise your physical hand. And for Zoom on the telephone, you can press *9. So in the matter of seeking recognition and speaking, don't get into arguments. If you're a member, you may not argue with the chair. If you're the chair, don't argue with the difficult member. Just state your ruling and then say, does the member wish to appeal this ruling? When you have not been recognized, you have a duty to remain silent. This comes as a shock to some people. The exception is a point of order when it's essential. So this is a wonderful paper that my colleague wrote, Rights and Responsibilities of the Member. Very short, but it lists all of those, and it will be also in your packet. So we had our fundamental guideline. No one may speak a second time till everyone who wishes to do so has spoken once. And what this means is no crosstalk between members. No crosstalk between members. And we think the most useful phrase a chair can say is, members will kindly seek recognition before speaking. Members will kindly seek recognition before speaking. Now, maybe you have a more informal commission, a more informal body, and you don't want to be quite that stiff. And so if somebody interrupts, you can just say, just a moment, Josh, Elaine has the floor. I did that just the other day at our choir board meeting. I had to cut somebody off. So how are you going to do this? Well, the chair can keep track of who has spoken and who wishes to speak using a chart. The chair can empower the vice chair to do this. It's good training for them. So this is a sample of a speaking chart, and you're perfectly free to adapt it if you like. Another great method is the round robin, where the chair goes around the table, asking each person in turn for their opinion, and people may pass and speak at the end. If you do that, it's important to have a pencil in hand to jot down points or questions for when your turn arrives. And the chair must wait their turn also. Sometimes we have a round robin and the chair feels compelled to answer each person back. That's obviously highly unfair. You can vary the order. And this rule also applies to questions and answers and discussions with staff. Sometimes we see a commission member and a staff member get into a 15-minute back and forth, and you don't want to do that. Don't let any two people hijack the meeting. When a member has the floor, they have the right to speak until they've completed their comments. Members may not interrupt each other. The chair may interrupt members when it's necessary to bring them to order, and members may interrupt to make a point of order when essential. But I'm delighted that Robert's rule says the chair may not interrupt members just because the chair knows more about the subject than the member. That's not allowed. We're not going to have any sidebar conversations or whispering. You should disable the chat during your meetings. Sometimes that becomes a shadow meeting, which is very deleterious to the main meeting. No texting to each other or people outside during meetings. And I'm sure you all know that texts on government business become a public record. And no posting on social media during meetings. We have a city in our area that had a council member who all during the council meeting was posting and mischaracterizing what her colleagues were saying on her Facebook account. So they had to bring that in because that's just, you just can't do that. We recommend keeping your camera on unless technical considerations prevent it. Otherwise, you're lurking. You're observing your colleagues without yourself being observed. And this is disturbing and creates an unpleasant emotional imbalance. This also ensures that you maintain a quorum. Sometimes people slip away to feed the cat, so you don't want to have that. Another advantage is it prevents someone from lifting a glass of the old vino during the meeting. Although you can't prevent that entirely. I worked with one city where a council member was putting vodka in her water glass, as evidenced by the fact that she became increasingly jolly as the meeting went on. So the mayor had to have a private word with her about this. So I know that structuring discussion in these ways can be frustrating. And members sometimes say, oh, I wish we could just hash it out and have a free-form discussion. Well, the Open Meetings Act and the press of time mean that usually this won't serve your committee well, but sometimes there is benefit in the conversational style or informal discussion. The chair must ensure that no one dominates. And I beg of you, please, don't make the conversational style your ordinary or your default style of discussion. Now, it's the duty of the chair to expedite business in every way compatible with the rights of members. So we recommend that you set time limits for agenda items, estimated time limits, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. You also want to put all times approximate, so you're not hidebound by that if you need more time or need less time. We recommend time limits on individual member speeches, 3 or 5 minutes. Time limits cannot be debated, but they can be suspended or changed by a 2/3 vote without debate. I saw the benefit of this when I was working with the city in Colorado. At 10 o'clock at night, they spent 15 minutes debating whether to extend the meeting by 30 minutes. I thought, oh boy, I can sure see why we have this rule in Robert, no debating. So another paper for you, time limits create productive meetings. Another fundamental guideline we have is that courtesy and respect towards everyone are required. And there are 5 kinds of remarks that are inappropriate in your meetings. Personal remarks about other members, except for conflict of interest, and I'm sure you have a policy about that. Discourteous remarks, insulting language or attacks. Inflammatory language. Criticizing past actions of the group, with two exceptions. If the subject is under discussion by the whole group, you may criticize it, or if you're going to propose to amend or rescind the action at the end of your speech, you may criticize it. And then last, remarks that are not germane, are not relevant to the discussion. This is kind of the big umbrella. So another paper, inappropriate remarks on local government councils. So let's have an example of an inappropriate remark.
That's a flat, outright lie.
Robert says the measure, what we're talking about, not the member, is the subject of debate. The moment the chair hears such words as fraud, liar, or lie used about a member in debate, he must act immediately and decisively to correct the matter and prevent its repetition. Now, what about the deer in the headlights problem? Sometimes, you hear something and it's off, but how do you identify it and then call to your tongue the things that need to be said? Well, we have a tool that helps with that. This is available for sale on our website. It's called the Wait Cheat Sheet. I will pull out a sample here. So it's a laminated cheat sheet. And down the left-hand side, it has the remarks that people can make and the things that can be errors that can be made. And then there are 3 columns. One column is for you as the chair, what you can say. One column is for what you as a member can say. And one column is what you as a member can say if the chair is misbehaving. So this is the only source that I know that presents this information in such a handy form. It's laminated. And a former mayor said to me once, he said, Ann, when I'm running the meeting and all those laminated placemats come out, I know that I'd better straighten up and fly right. His council had been trained. And so if he started going off the reservation, they would pull out their cheat sheets to have the right language. Now, who decides if any question arises, whether a remark is appropriate or not, or a comment is germane? The chair rules, subject to appeal, or the chair may also turn immediately to the group to ask the members to decide. Ultimately, it's the group's call. Now, one important note, we're speaking here about discussion within your meetings. These prohibitions do not apply to the public when they're giving public comment, as we will discuss in section 7. So here is sample discussion guidelines for local governments. Again, it's in your packet. And if you ever want to revisit your guidelines, you're free to use any material in that. So are there any questions about this section? So I thought we'd just take a few minutes and have a free-form discussion. I'm going to stop the share here so I can see you all and ask which of these ideas do you find useful?
I'm going to say every single one of them.
Oh, well, that's great to hear, Anthony. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any objections? Anybody who feels like, wait a minute, I'm not sure I like this. Do you feel that you're following generally along these lines, or is this some of this new?
What do you think, Arts Council? Do I generally follow these lines?
Yes, I think you do. I think we do.
Good, good. Yes, Daniel.
Yeah. Oh, I think Elizabeth follows them, but I think it's helpful for us to be able to everything you said, like, so that we know how to correct it. And I did the raise hand just to show, like, I think that's good if people are actually doing that and we're going in order.
Great, thank you, thank you. Well, a lot of this is common courtesy and common sense, but sometimes it's important, I think, to review. So, any other comments, Andrea? Any thoughts on this?
I think that overall the city's very lucky that all of our boards and commissions do, for the most part, follow. Some of them are more informal, but that's also the type of the business that they deal with. So I think we're very lucky in that aspect.
Great, great. All right, well, now then let's take a look at motions and amendments. This is where we get to have more dinosaurs. So I always enjoy that. So in large groups, you must have a motion before any discussion begins. But in small boards, up to about 12 people, which I believe are all of your bodies, it's fine to discuss things in a more casual way, but even so, in our view, it's best to begin with a motion. So we recommend this sequence. The staff presents the proposal in writing and answers any questions. Each member may ask 1 or 2 questions, then the next member has a turn. This is kind of the information gathering step. Then the motion is moved and seconded. Then the members discuss the motion and may amend it, and then the members vote on the motion. Now, in some bodies that I see, that information gathering section becomes problematic because people start asking questions like this of the staff. Wouldn't it be better if we did such and so? That's discussing the merits of it, and you shouldn't be doing that during the information gathering portion. So a main motion is a proposal to do something. It starts the action, and it should be in writing if at all possible. So we represent by a T-Rex. So you can project it on the screen or you have it in your packet. There are 3-part forms you can use to write down the motion. The chair gets one, the clerk gets one, and the person who made the motion gets one. A main motion should be clear and unambiguous. Don't say, I move what he just said, or so moved. You know, say we're having a discussion on the terrible problem of delinquent dinosaurs, and the member says, I think we really ought to do something about this. It would be great if we had a summer camp that would allow us to give these poor young folk a proper focus for their energies. And somebody else says, so moved. What was moved? What was moved? You know, you want to say precisely what you have in mind. A motion must be phrased in the grammatical positive. I heard a motion once where a city council moved not to adopt an ordinance. I move that we do not adopt this ordinance. No. That just gets you into a lot of trouble. Move to adopt the ordinance, and if you don't want it, vote it down. A main motion must comply with the bylaws and the procedural law of the land, and you can have only one main motion at a time. So this is another fundamental guideline, one thing at a time. If we are discussing raising the parking fees, and somebody comes along and says, I think that we ought to think about whether we should have more electric vehicles in the city fleet, that's a whole nother topic. So this other main motion has to run away and hide behind the trees until we've dealt with the one that we're processing right now. And then when we're done with that one, we can have another. You can see Robert's military background. I'll talk a little bit more about his background in a bit. So to make a main motion, at the right time, any member says, I move that, and states as clearly and concisely as possible what is proposed. The member has the responsibility of formulating the motion. And don't mix up your ideas about the subject with the motion itself. Save those for debate. So sometimes we have this kind of comment. I've been noticing that the number of wild cats is increasing in our city, and they're getting stomped on by bigger dinosaurs, so I think allowing catios would be great. It would make a huge difference to the safety of our little feline friends. That's the way to drive Andrea or your staff person crazy. You just say, I move that we recommend to council that residents be authorized to build catios in their private yards. Now, if you're out driving and you come up to an intersection, you don't have to stop and think, should I step on the brakes or step on the gas? You have internalized the process of traffic management, and so you know immediately what to do. And I would like you to internalize these same 8 steps to process a motion. So if you can, grab a pencil and just jot these down. First, the member makes the motion. Then another member seconds the motion. Then the chair states the motion. The members debate and or amend the motion. That's when amendments come in during step 4. The chair restates the motion and calls for the vote. The members vote on the motion. The chair states the results of the vote, whether the motion passes or fails, and what happens next as a result of the vote. And then the chair states the next item of business. So this pattern comes up again and again. And it's really helpful, as I say, if you have internalized it. So how many times do the members hear the motion?
At least 3 before the vote, and then again after the vote. Or
Well,
maybe not after the vote.
They won't hear it after. That's it, Rosemary. 3 times. When the member makes it, when the chair states it, and when the chair restates it. And then after the vote, it doesn't have to be restated as such. Now, what about seconding? Second the motion. You second a motion to show that you would like to talk about it. There's no need to be recognized. You can just call out second. In the olden days, second the motion meant that you agreed with the motion, but it just now means that you think it's worthy of discussion. And it's even okay to second a motion you disagree with if you want to explain why it's a bad idea. If there's no second, the chair says, there being no second, the motion will not be considered, and then moves immediately to the next item of business. Now, just to mention that under Robert's rules, the maker of the motion cannot speak against it. If the discussion has changed their mind, they should request permission to withdraw the motion. But the maker can vote against their own motion. So step 3 is very important. The presider must repeat the motion or have the clerk repeat it. Why? So that everyone knows what we're actually discussing. Now, if it's a long draft ordinance or something like that, you can just repeat the title. But also, after step 3, the motion belongs to the group as a whole, not to the person who made it. Now, a main motion needs discussion. And so we have the motion. I move that we recommend to council that residents be authorized to build patios in their private yards. And the maker of the motion has the right to speak first. So the general contractor says, patios are a safe and effective way to protect cats from predators and birds from cats. Here is an example of a nice little patio. I urge my colleagues to vote in favor of this motion. Then the photographer says, I'm in favor. My cousin has built a patio and her little pet Fuzzy is completely at home in it, as you can see from this picture. The architect says, I think this is a terrible idea. Patios are intrusive and will ruin the look of our city. Here's an example I saw when I visited Dino Dome last week. We don't want ugly buildings like this in Bonnie Dino. So we have discussion on the merits of the motion. And when it seems that discussion is finished, the chair asks, is there any further discussion or are you ready to vote? To gauge the temper of the room, and if no one speaks up, takes the vote. These are kind of rhetorical questions. For voting, if it's by voice vote, the chair repeats the motion. The chair says all those in favor say aye, all those opposed say no. The chair announces the results of the vote, whether the motion passes or fails, and what will happen next. And then the chair announces the next item of business. So the ayes have it, the motion passes, and we will recommend to council that residents be authorized to build patios in their private yards, or the noes have it, the motion fails, and we will not recommend this proposal to council. Notice that the chair must call for the negative vote, calling for the noes, even if it seems unanimous. And I want to mention that step 5 is also very important. The chair must repeat the motion before the vote is taken so that everyone knows what we're actually voting on. So there's no debate during voting. Nothing can interrupt the voting process, and members are not allowed to explain their vote during the vote or afterwards. Even a point of order must wait until the result of the vote is announced. A member may change their vote up until the time the chair announces the result. After that time, it takes unanimous consent of the body for the member to change their vote. And according to Robert's rules, once the chair has moved on to the next item of business, it's too late to change a vote. One person wrote me and said that in her body, at the next meeting of council, they were routinely allowing people to change their vote and then amending the minutes to reflect that. Oh, I got a headache just even hearing about it. So you can't do that. Under Robert's rules, to abstain is to do nothing. Abstentions are not counted and the chair does not call for abstentions. But if you're a public body, likely you will call for and record abstentions. And if you have a conflict of interest, you should recuse yourself from the vote. Recusal is a special form of abstention. So you want to talk with your attorney before the meeting. Don't spring it during the meeting itself. And it may be that recusal is not enough. Here's an article by MRSC, Is Abstaining from Voting Enough? Now, if I have our motion, maybe we want to improve it. So we're going to amend it. So amendment, you amend a motion to improve it, unless you're the US Congress, but we're not going to go there. The amendment applies to the main motion. The amendment must be germane, that's just a jargon word meaning relevant, and anyone may move to amend, even the person who made the motion. You might look a little foolish if you make a motion and then amend it right away 5 minutes later, but there's no prohibition. So the photographer says, I move that we amend the motion by adding the words, oops, sorry, I went the wrong direction. I move that we amend the motion by adding the words, provided that the plan for each catio has been approved by the Design Review Board. So if we adopt this, the motion will read, the commission will recommend to council that residents be authorized to build catios in their private yards, provided that the plan for each catio has been approved by the Design Review Board. So there are 4 ways to amend. You can add or insert words, which is what we're doing here. We're adding them at the end. You can strike out words. You can strike out words and insert words in their place. And you can substitute, where you put in a whole nother thing, which we do not recommend. So the amendment is processed using the same 8 steps that we just saw for a main motion. Those same 8 steps, you see how they apply. But the challenge is we vote on amendments before we vote on the main motion, in order to make the main motion as good as possible, to perfect the motion. So here we've got our main motion. Recommend to council that residents be authorized to build catios. And here we have our amendment to add the words, provided that each design is approved by the Design Review Board. So the amendment blocks the main motion. We retreat on this and we spend our time discussing and deciding what to do about the amendment. So I'm going to stop the share for a moment just to demonstrate this. Here's our main motion. Here's our amendment. Suppose that we like the amendment to provided that the design is approved by the Design Review Board. So we adopt it. It then becomes a part of the main motion. We have an amended main motion, an amended main motion. Suppose we don't like it. Suppose we vote the amendment down. We toss it away and we go back to the main motion as it was before we considered the amendment. So this is actually the Jurassic Parliament origin story. Years ago, when the movie was so popular, I was trying to show my board that an amendment blocks the main motion, and I was cleaning my son Steve's bedroom at the time, which was full of dinosaurs, and my eye fell on them, and I thought, you know, this could be the main motion, and this could be the amendment. This is actually an original Steven Spielberg Jurassic Parliament dinosaur. You can see JP there. So I stole my son's dinosaurs. He's forgiven me. And that was the whole beginning of it all. So I owe it all to Steven Spielberg and my son, Steve. Anyway, here we are, and it blocks the amendment. So the amendment blocks the main motion. So people sometimes get confused and don't realize that after voting on the amendment, the process continues. And once the fate of the amendment has been decided, debate continues on the main motion. Now, once you've dealt with one amendment, you may have others, provided they apply to a different aspect of the main motion. So for instance, we could have another amendment to institute this program in 2026 or something like that. When we discuss and debate this amendment, and then it could, if it passes, we have two amendments. So it takes special actions, reconsideration, to go back and change something we've already amended. So after all the amendments have been processed, the body still must vote on the amended main motion. You don't want to forget that or neglect it. So any questions about motions and amendments? Does this all seem pretty reasonable and matches up with what you do? Rosemary.
So if you've amended the motion and the amendment incorporates the motion, I assume you don't also vote on the motion after that.
So you vote on the amendment, the motion incorporates the amendment, and you still must vote on the main motion as amended.
Okay, but you don't vote on the original motion then.
No, you vote on the motion as amended.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed. These are great questions. Amendments are tricky, so please.
Oh, sorry, I'm probably breaching Robert's rules, but I have a second question.
Well, no one else put their hand up, so go ahead.
So can a person who seconds the motion speak against it?
Sure. Sure. The prohibition is only on speaking against your own motion. A person could say, I seconded this motion because I think it would be a disaster for our city, and I want to explain why. That would be allowed. Any other questions? Any other ideas? All right. Well, in that case, we're going to take a, let me share my screen. Hold on. In that case, we're going to take a 5-minute break. It's very short, just a chance for you to top off your water glass or whatever. And I will see you all back at 6:35. So I'm going to go top off my own water glass. No vodka in this one, I'll tell you. Okay, well, I make it 6:35. So let's resume by looking at the authority and the role of the chair, the members, and the staff. As I've mentioned, Robert has different rules for small boards. Now, in a small board, the chair may make motions, second them, discuss, and vote unless the law, regulations, or bylaws say otherwise. But we recommend that the chair speak and vote last and refrain from making motions. This is a Jurassic Parliament suggestion. It's not in Robert's rules. If the chair thinks that a motion is called for, the chair can use this language. Would any member care to move that? Would any member care to move that? So you're inviting people, but you're not yourself using too much authority. Now, in all of this, I'm referring to Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised, 12th edition, which is abbreviated RONR, standing for Rules of Order Newly Revised. And if you do want a Robert, we recommend the spiral-bound edition, which is available only from the National Association of Parliamentarians. So I hope that none of you will reveal my dreadful secrets to my colleagues, but I think this is a terrible book. Robert originally was a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. One of his first assignments was on San Juan Island when he built the embankment that was going to protect us from the British when we were going to go to war over a pig in 1859. And when he published his first book in 1876, it was a pocket manual. It would literally fit in your coat pocket. And somehow it took off. All across the nation, people were thrilled to have a common understanding of how to run meetings. But I believe that his son, grandson, and heirs did what is so common, which is improving something until you wreck it. You know, they kept on adding to it until we have this monstrosity. And when I first got into this game, you know, I was very discouraged. I wanted to give up. But I kept on, and I realized that there's a core to Robert's rules that we really need. There's a core that's essential for good and fair meetings. And the Robert's Rules people, in a way, have recognized that because they have published Robert's Rules in brief. This is a good book. You can read this in a weekend, although nobody wants to, but it gives the essence of what is needed for Robert's Rules. So let me mention that there is a hierarchy of authority. The Constitution comes at the top, then federal law, then state law, then your charter, articles of incorporation or code, then your bylaws or council rules, then any special rules of order, and finally, Robert's Rules of Order. Robert's Rules comes at the bottom. Your bylaws have more authority. And citizen boards, committees, and commissions must follow the rules that are established by the council. So I'd like to talk here about two different types of organizations. One is called an accountability hierarchy. It's shaped like a triangle or a pyramid, and at the top, you've got the boss who's in charge. The boss hires people to do the work of the organization, tells them how to do it, and if they do it badly, fires them. And one feature of this kind of organization is that it has status or rank, and people who are near the boss are higher in status than people who are down below. You hope that they use their high status intelligently and listen to the people down below, which they have a tendency not to do. But in and of itself, to me, it's okay to have this hierarchy because we need the hierarchy for accountability. If all of us on this call had the task of building the new Mercer Island City Hall, we would never succeed if we all had the same status. So this is very common structure. Every corporation has a CEO, every school has a principal, every army has a general. It's so common that we think of it as the ordinary or the default structure, but it's not. There's a whole other kind called a voluntary association. In a voluntary association, a group of people come together to achieve a common purpose. They set up some guidelines for themselves and they select a leader, but the leader is a peer. The leader is an equal with some special responsibilities. So each member has an equal right to speak and to try to persuade others to accept their view. During meetings, the chair controls the process so the group can make the decisions. And during meetings, the chair is the servant of the group and the group is the final authority. That's the most important thing I'm going to say today, so I give it to you in red. The chair is the servant of the group and the group is the final authority. Now you have both types of structure. The Citizen Advisory Commission, the board or the committee, forms a voluntary association, while the city manager and staff form an accountability hierarchy. What is each person's individual authority? When you walk out from your Arts Council meeting or your utility board or your planning commission, your design commission, your open space conservancy trust, what authority do you as an individual have? You know the answer: zero, nothing, nada, zip. And this is a wonderful statement, I think, of that. All members of a governing board share in a joint and collective authority, which exists and can be exercised only when the group is in session. Joint and collective, that's the nature of your authority. And what about your individual power? Well, commissioners and committee members may not do the work of the city. They care deeply about it, and sometimes they have special knowledge and expertise. They may make suggestions, but they may not do the work of the city. This is a legal requirement between legislation and administration. The staff are advisors to the body, not members. They have the right to speak in order to fulfill their function of service, but they must seek recognition before speaking. Staff should be empowered to make points of order, and staff and members, as I mentioned, should not enter into conversations that hijack the meeting. Now, the commission must give clarity to the staff. Don't float an idea and expect the staff to make it concrete. You know, sometimes people say, oh, the staff can look into this, and then they're angry if it doesn't happen. If an individual commissioner wants the staff to do something, the presider of the meeting must make sure the commission agrees by taking a vote. And you can just say, as a commissioner, I move that the staff research this and report back at our next meeting. So here's a paper we've written, Successful Staff Interaction in Local Government Meetings. That's my hometown of Shoreline right there. And I hope it will be helpful to you. So discussion on your motions can and should be vigorous. Express your views freely and don't hold back. But once the vote has been taken, things change. It's okay to disagree. The fact that people have different opinions is a strength. It's a good thing. But we tend to identify with our own position. And when we're defeated, we sometimes take it personally. And this is a mistake because at the end of the day, the body must unite behind its decision. It's a basic democratic principle that the decision of the majority voting at a properly called meeting is the decision of the body as a whole. The minority must make it their decision as well. Now, it's a terrible system, but I hold with Winston Churchill, who famously said, democracy is the worst system of government in all the world, with the exception of those others that have been tried from time to time. So when serving on a public body, members have a duty to uphold the decision of that body, even if they disagree with it. They may express their disagreement in public, but they may not attempt to undermine the decision. And of course, they're free to try to persuade their colleagues during the meeting to change the decision within certain limits. So we have this paper, Lost the Vote, Don't Sabotage the Council's Action. And I want to say that this is so important because the ballot box is sacred because the alternative is blood. Elias Canetti said this, and I think it's true. You know, all across the world, we see societies where decisions are made by force and power and blood and iron and not by the democratic process. Our nation has many flaws and many areas where it needs to improve, but I think we can take pride in the fact, and we should take pride in the fact, that we live in a society that is basically committed to the rule of law and to the democratic process. And you all are a key part of that. You know, you are serving on your councils and commissions, or you as staff, not because you've paid a bribe to the governor or because you have a private army, but because of your commitment to your community. And to me, it's a marvelous thing, which we don't always see. We don't always see citizens stepping up and doing the important and basic work of running our communities. And I feel that oftentimes residents and citizens really don't see and don't appreciate how much work goes into what you do. And I value that and I appreciate it and I thank you for it. It's one of the reasons I love working in Jurassic Parliament. So that's my public service announcement for the day. So our next topic is Citizen Advisory Committee pitfalls. So one of the biggest pitfalls is confusion about your job. And I love this line from the City of Bellevue's commissioner. The work of the Planning Commission is to carry out the instructions of the council. What is a Citizen Advisory Committee? A Citizen Advisory Committee is a body that has been established in order to do a job assigned by someone else. So this can be a problem, and we're going to look at some of the problems that can occur. I'm going to run quickly through 9 different situations. And I'm going to describe each situation, and I'm going to ask you what you think the problem is. Now, if you feel very bold, you can just unmute yourself and speak right up. Usually I find people are a little shy and they don't really want to speak up because they're afraid they might be wrong, but there's no wrong and right here. We're just describing things that can go awry. So here's the first situation, which I love. This really happened. The Planning Commission is considering a request to lower the setback from 50 feet to 20 feet. And a commissioner asks, isn't there a better place in the city to site this hotel? Now, does anybody want to unmute and tell me what's wrong with that?
That isn't the question that was asked for them.
Perfect. That's confusion about scope. You must answer the questions assigned to you by the council, not propose unrelated alternatives. You know, nobody made that commissioner the arbiter of who could sell which plot of real estate. So thank you. That's a great answer. The Environmental Commission is recommending setting aside some wetlands. And a commissioner says, I think we can't address this until the university report comes out in 5 years. What's wrong with that? Anybody?
I think they were asked to make a recommendation now.
Perfect. Asking for the moon. Thank you, Marie. It's an unfortunate fact of governance that sometimes bodies must make decisions with less than adequate information. The staff have made a recommendation to purchase a historic farm site as a museum, and the commissioner says, why are the staff making this recommendation? I think we're wasting our money on staff salaries. Only citizens really understand the issues here. What's that?
I think again, it's not answering the question.
Yes. And it's confusion about the staff role. We need staff. It wouldn't be possible for residents alone to conduct the business of a modern city. And there are other confusions as well. Staff are employees of the city, and the commission or committee may not direct them independently of their assigned tasks. These are all things that have come up in my work. Staff have a duty to remind citizen volunteers of the laws, regulations, and fiscal constraints that apply. This is not sticking an oar in, it's doing their job. Also, and I hope this is not an issue for any of you, commissions and committees must come to closure with their issue and define a specific action that they recommend. Sometimes they're just kind of waffling around and they say, so moved, or I move what he just said. The staff can help bring things to closure. Situation is the staff has carried out a survey and a commissioner says, since I'm a professional surveyor, I can redo the survey to verify it.
We're not supposed to be doing staff's jobs here.
Perfect. A commissioner may have valuable particular expertise, but they're recruited to the commission as a citizen, not as a technical expert. So staff have to be staff and citizens be citizens. There's been a public outcry about changes to the irrigation district boundaries. And Commissioner says, 6 of my neighbors are very upset about this. They've taken the trouble to come to our meetings, so we should do what they want.
I think the point of the commission is to make a decision, not to have people tell them what to do.
That's right. And Rick Stevens calls this deafened by decibels. You know, that when there's a big clamor out there, you have to listen to it, but it's not supposed to decide what you're going to do. Decisions should be rational, not determined by decibels. Your responsibility is to listen to your constituents while voting based on your own best judgment, not solely in response to crowd opinion. And we have a paper about this when public pressure is intense that we'll include in our packet. There's a mixed public opinion about a developer's plans to site a shopping center near the main road. And Commissioner says, when we're getting so many different conflicting views on this, I think we should just punt for another 6 months.
They should make a decision and not and use their judgment and not just evade the issue.
Very good. Excellent. And we call this decision delay. A planning commission is expected to render decisions in a timely manner. Some applications suffer death by 1,000 nicks, so we don't want to have that happen. The Arts Commission is considering a report about the museum, and a commissioner says, I was on my honeymoon in Norway, and I just haven't had time to study this.
That seems irrelevant to the subject at hand.
Absolutely, absolutely. Too much information. And failure of responsibility. Commissioners must read their packets before the meeting. I know it's hundreds of pages sometimes, but if you're going to be in the job, that's what you have to do. Thank you. The commission is discussing plans for a new hiking trail along the river, and someone says, I think we have to analyze what kinds of paving stones are best, so teeny tiny rocks don't get stuck in the paws of our dinosaur residents.
They're just considering it for the time being, it sounds like. They're not at that step yet.
Exactly, exactly. And we call this analysis paralysis. You know, we all have a human tendency to delve into the details, but sometimes people spend too much time discussing details that are not relevant. I worked with one planning commission, in a county planning commission. They spent 40 minutes discussing what color to paint a house and discovered in the end they didn't even own the house. They didn't even have the right. So it was really just a disaster. There doesn't seem to be an attractive option for the new community swimming pool. Both sites have environmental issues. Commissioner says the Planning Commission and the city can't resolve this issue. I move that we recommend that the city carry out a referendum.
No, I don't think that's in the authority of the Planning Commission to decide that.
No, it's not. And we also consider it to be shrinking from hard choices. A commission doesn't have the right to decline to do its job. They've been asked to make recommendations. And so just fiddling around and saying, oh, you know, we ought to have a referendum is not appropriate. Chris.
Yeah, so it's never appropriate if you're looking at a decision and you really see that it's better decided in a different way or a different time to frame up a different recommendation, you potentially as an alternative to, or you're saying that even if you see a disaster coming and think, oh my God, we're making a decision at the wrong time, we just put our head down and charge? I mean, I'm confused about that.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. The example was
well, there's been 3 examples, I guess. There's twice there's been the suggestion to delay, and then this is the third one about a referendum. And, you know, I'm just saying that it seems like in all those cases, there might've been a context in which there might be a discussion to be had. And I guess I'm just confused about how one goes about that if you earnestly believe it and not just trying to duck the issue.
Well, I agree with you. Yes, if you see a disaster or if you think that it's got to be done some different way, you can indeed recommend an alternative, and you should recommend an alternative. I've been trying in these examples, and of course, in a way they're hard to do because these are complex matters being reduced to a few words on a slide. In this situation, there doesn't seem to be an attractive option. Both sites have environmental issues, and the member says, let's have the city carry out a referendum. In other words, punting it to the citizens as a whole. Well, if there are technical and scientific and environmental aspects to it, I believe that the city should resolve it, not the community. That's abdicating your responsibility. But one could certainly make the argument. I'm not trying to say you should never do that, but
okay. But I was a little confused. I was concerned.
No,
Thank you
those are good
for the
points.
clarification.
Those are good points. Thank you. So this is my last and my favorite. There's a lot of dubious activity going on in the 110-acre park to the east of town. This really happened in a city in California. And the commissioner says, I move that all parks commissioners be issued t-shirts saying Parks Commission and be authorized to issue tickets to offenders. So what's wrong with this guy?
I don't know. I don't see a problem with it. I think it's fine.
Oh, you're all in favor, Elizabeth. T-shirts, tickets.
It sounds like a posse to me.
Well, this guy was a former police officer, so.
Yeah, but they're not police officers.
No, they're not. And they have a very much more limited job. So this is our attempt anyway to describe these various pitfalls and and many of them I actually have seen. They actually have happened. So I hope that it's a helpful thought for you. Does anybody have any other comments or questions? And again, Chris, thank you for that caveat. Anybody? Angela.
Just to follow on what he said, I mean, isn't it always okay to say, we don't know enough, can we get more information?
Well, yes, it is okay if you're not asking for the moon. I mean, in the example.
No, I understand that, but like in the environmental situation, if we don't really understand the full breadth of the environmental situation, it seems like the right thing to do is ask for more information.
Sure, you absolutely can and you should. I'm trying to create kind of cartoonified examples that will show the problem in broad strokes, but in reality, it may be much more subtle. Yes. So Angela, did you have your hand up?
I did. I was just curious, these pitfalls that you're describing, are they more etiquette in terms of parliamentary rules, or are they actual codified in Robert's Rules of Order?
Well, almost none of this is in Robert's rules.
Okay.
Robert has very, very little about city functioning. It's kind of a funny thing that it's become so widespread when it's really written. Robert's Rules of Order was really written for your garden club, for what we call ordinary societies. So these pitfalls I developed based on my work with planning commissions over the last 20 years and seeing what kinds of problems they came up with. But these are not parliamentary issues. They are issues to do with failure of a governmental body to function as it ought to. And as I say, my favorite example is the guy saying, should they find a better place to build the hotel? I mean, people can really be confused about what their duty is. So, and when a planning commission understands its duty and does it correctly, it's invaluable and it's an essential part of a city functioning. All your commissions are very, very important. Any other questions? Okay, so let's look at public comment. And in fact, we come up to that very point that Angela was making. Robert's Rules of Order contains very little guidance on public comment. So this information is distilled from my experience in working with local governments. So why do we have public comment? The key point, which I think everybody has to remember, is that a board meeting, a commission meeting, is not a meeting of the public. It's not a meeting of the public. It's a meeting of the board that is held in public. And the purpose of the public comment period is to allow the board members to become informed about the views of the public. So it should be carefully structured. We recommend being consistent. Announce your rules at the beginning of each session and provide a written handout. For the sake of fairness, rules for comment must be enforced consistently. The public must address their remarks to the chair, not to individual board members or the audience. One of our cities got a handheld mic for public comment, and the commenters immediately turned around and started haranguing the community. So you don't want to have that happening. Follow time limits. It's good to ask the staff to time speakers so the chair is not distracted, and some bodies have a visible timer. Speakers may not donate their time to someone else. We recommend strongly that you do not dialogue. Don't get into a back and forth with the public. If the chair starts dialoguing with the public, the situation can quickly become confusing. And if you respond to some speakers, but not to others, it can be interpreted as showing bias. The public may have different expectations. They may come to the meeting looking for answers to specific questions. They may want to argue. They may want their remarks on the record. They want to raise a point of order. So education is critical. We strongly recommend that only the chair may speak to the audience as a whole. Individual board members may not speak to the public or recognize people in the audience, and you certainly want to discourage demonstrations. Clapping, booing, whistling, stamping of feet. These chill free speech, both for board members and the public. Now, the courts have found that local governments may limit the time, place, and manner of public comment, as long as all such restrictions are viewpoint neutral. So we recommend setting a time period for public comment, for example, 30 minutes. We recommend a 3-minute limit for individual speakers, or a 5-minute limit if a speaker represents a group, or if you have a crowd, maybe you have to make it shorter, 2 minutes or 1 minute, although 1 minute kind of gets too short. If a speaker runs over the limit, interrupt and request that they conclude their remarks, or simply say, "Thank you, your time is up." Now, attendees do not have the right to disrupt the meeting. However, the courts have found that mere words do not usually constitute disruption. In general, residents can say whatever they like during public comment. You can have some restrictions, for instance, not allowing campaigning and so on. But how are you going to act on the dais? Well, you convey interest and concern by your body language. You should listen to each person speaking as if there were no one else in the room, and this is hard. You want to keep a warm and pleasant expression or a neutral face if the speaker is not complimentary. The best approach is to thank each speaker, even if negative, and move on. The chair may provide brief factual information, if appropriate, which must not degenerate into lecturing or criticism. For instance, if someone says, "The Planning Commission should never have recommended that plan last year," the chair is free to say the Planning Commission did not recommend that plan. You can correct factual errors, but don't put staff on the spot. In one city I know of, somebody complains about the potholes and they say, could call up the Public Works Director and say, "What about the situation on 72nd Street? Don't do that. Some bodies have a staff member off to the side who can take the question and contact information to respond later. Board members should not attack the staff in public and must be courteous to them. If the public attacks the staff, don't get defensive and don't get into a hostile exchange, but you might want to be prepared, if it's appropriate, to defend the city manager in a calm, positive manner, because if there are continued attacks and no response is made, it can seem as if the body agrees with the criticisms. You can talk with your staff liaison about this if it's a problem. Jurassic Parliament recommends that details of public comment should not be included in the minutes, and we have a blog entry explaining why. And in that article about meeting minutes, MRSC recommends this. Since meeting minutes are subject to disclosure under the Public Records Act, if your agency chooses to include public comments in the minutes, we recommend a summary of the comment period that avoids providing personally identifiable information on individual commenters. Of course, this may go to the heart of some of your most engaged citizens who want to come to their meetings only in order to let their remarks be heard and put on the record, but this is what MRSC recommends. So at the end of the public comment period, the chair should thank the public for attending. Sometimes public comment is over and the chair just races on, but you should thank everybody and explain that while this is not a time for dialogue, all comments and questions are taken seriously by the body. Sincerity and warmth will make a big difference to the experience the public has. Since public comment is so limited, it's essential for you to be in touch with your public, to be responsive and to appear responsive. So you want to think about other channels, community forums, personal discussions, coffee with the commission, always less than a quorum, a form on your website, surveys, and so on. So we have just recently published an updated 50 guidelines for public comment, which will be in your packet as well. And you're perfectly free to share this with anybody you like. This is what we recommend as best practices for public comment. Set time limits for public comment and for individual speeches. Have the public address the chair and have the chair respond. Don't engage in dialogue with the public, but have arrangements to answer their questions afterwards. Speakers may not donate their time. And on the dais, make the effort to be and to appear to be listening intently to all speakers. So does anybody have any questions about public comment and our suggestions? Or any comments? Okay, well, I think in that case, it's time for us to read another little script before we go on to our final unit. So I'm going to move this over here and I'm going to share the screen. And I invite you to volunteer for these roles. We have a chair, and I'm happy if somebody else wants to try being the chair, banker, botanist, dancer, facilities committee chair, and football coach. So again, it's not hard. You just have to read what's there and give it the proper emotional twist if you like. So do we have any volunteers?
I'll take the botanist.
Okay.
I can be the football coach.
Chris.
I'll be the dancer.
Okay, thank you, Angela.
Be the banker again.
All right, sticking to type A. And we need a facilities committee chair.
I can do that.
Very good. And we need a chair. Elizabeth, do you feel brave?
Sure, I can be the chair.
Okay, good. All right, take it away.
As council members know, when we built our new city hall 10 years ago, it was landscaped according to green principles. We use only the latest energy efficient tools and methods. However, despite our best efforts, the blackberries and the English ivy have gotten out of hand. Staff recommends that we hire a herd of goats from Rent-A-Goat in order to trim the crowns. Does any member care to make that motion?
I move that the staff be directed to hire a herd of goats from Rent-A-Goat in order to trim the grounds.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the staff be directed to hire a herd of goats from Rent-A-Goat in order to trim the grounds. Do you care to speak to your motion?
This is very sensible, environmentally friendly way to take care of the overgrowth. I know that in Washington State, they use goats all the time to trim the county parks.
I think this is a silly way to tackle this problem, but I know something about tackling. I'm in favor of slash and burn myself. I move that we apply industrial strength plant killer to destroy the blackberries and the ivy, root and branch.
Members are reminded that under Robert's Rules of Order, only one main motion can be considered at a time. We are discussing the proposal to hire a herd of goats, so no other main motion can be made.
I can't believe you said that. How can anyone be in favor of slash and burn? Have you no consideration for the well-being of our planet? You are out and out fossil.
Well, in my opinion, your crazy environmental ideas are just as bad. We're going to be sorry we ever got into this smelly goat business.
Point of order, Chair.
State your point.
Under Robert's Rules of Order, no one may speak a second time until everyone who wishes to do so has spoken once. These members are monopolizing the conversation and also are using insulting language to each other.
The point is well taken. We need to hear from everyone in turn. All discussion must be respectful. Who else would like to speak?
I predicted that the green nonsense was going to give us problems down the line, and look where we are now. I move that we add the words at a maximum cost of $12,000 per year.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we amend the motion by adding the words at a maximum cost of $12,000 per year.
Chair, I'm confused. Does this mean that we've already decided in favor of the goats?
No, the way the system of motions works, a member makes a proposal, a main motion. Then other members can move to amend the main motion in order to improve it. We will discuss and vote on the amendment, and then we'll take up the main motion again. If the amendment passes, we'll consider the motion as amended. If it fails, we'll return to the original main motion.
So amending the motion in order to improve it, eh? Do they follow that rule in Congress?
All discussions must be limited to the topic at hand. Banker, do you care to speak to your amendment?
As far as I'm concerned, the tree huggers are making it impossible to get anything done. Goats will be expensive to maintain. I've heard stories of them costing tens of thousands of dollars. We could lose our shirts with this. We need to set some fiscal limits.
Any further discussion?
It's just common prudence to protect yourself with a clause like this. I urge my colleagues to vote in favor.
Our grounds are pretty big, but I think $1,000 a month ought to be enough to keep them in good shape. I'm in favor.
In my view, that's not enough money. I doubt that we can get the service we need for that amount. I speak against the amendment.
Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, we'll take the vote on the motion to amend. If the amendment passes, the motion will read that the staff be directed to hire a herd of goats from Rent-A-Goat in order to trim the grounds at a maximum cost of $12,000 a year. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no.
No.
The ayes have it. The motion passes and the main motion is amended. We will now resume the discussion on the main motion as amended.
Is this me? Yeah, I'm a nature lover and I think that this is a brilliant solution. I'm all for it.
It doesn't seem like such a big deal to me. I like landscaping that has a rough and unfinished look. It's less artificial.
Natural look is one thing, but I could hardly get out of my car today with the blackberry bushes.
You know, I'm not so sure about this. I think we're being kind of hasty here. If you studied the zodiac, you'd know that the sun is in the house of Taurus these days, which actually isn't true. Here's what my horoscope said this morning. You need to reach a decision organically. There's no way to rush it.
Point of order, Chair.
State your point.
The last speaker's remarks do not appear to be germane to the issue we're discussing.
The point is well taken. Members are reminded that under Robert's Rules of Order, discussion must be relevant to the topic at hand.
Well, I think that we can't really address this unless we look at the governor's report on climate change. I was reading it the other day and I was really impressed with the official recommendations.
Point of order, Chair.
State your point.
I believe the governor's report on climate change is not germane to our discussion right now.
The chair will ask the council to decide this question. All those who believe that the governor's report on climate change is germane to our discussion right now, say aye.
Aye.
All those who believe it is not germane, say no.
No.
The noes have it. The report is not germane, and we will not discuss it at this time.
I don't think we need to hire a herd from Rent-A-Goat to find the goats. A glance around the chamber should be enough.
Point of order.
State your point.
That is an insulting remark.
The point is well taken. Members will refrain from personal and insulting comments and keep their discussion on topic.
It seems to me that the goats are kind of smelly and messy. I'm worried that this is going to downgrade our professional image.
It seems to the chair that you're worrying too much about appearances. Can't you get down from your high horse and consider what's best for the planet?
Whoa, point of order, Chair.
State your point.
The chair is out of line here. Under Robert's rules, the chair has to follow the same rules as the rest of us and may not make personal remarks.
Oh, the point is well taken, and the chair apologizes for getting carried away.
I think this is a great idea. I'm a Capricorn. I'm a Capricorn, and the sign of the goat is an excellent omen for our city.
In my opinion, anyone who supports this nutty idea is a bozo.
Point of order, Chair.
State your point.
The word bozo is an insult.
The chair will rule that the word bozo is an insult and may not be used.
Appeal.
Second.
Very well. The ruling of the chair has been appealed and seconded, so the group will decide. As you know, appeals pertaining to language and decorum cannot be debated. It is just a straight up or down vote. All those who believe that the ruling of the chair that bozo is an insult should be sustained, please say aye.
Aye.
All those who disagree, please say no.
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 Very well. The
Oops. We're at 70 there.
a little bit higher up, I think, yeah? There it is. Okay, sorry. Very well. The ayes have it, and the ruling of the chair is sustained. Members may not use the word bozo. Clerk, please be sure to record this in the minutes. Is there any further discussion on the motion as amended? Very well. We'll take the vote. All those in favor of the motion that the staff be directed to hire a herd of goats from Rent-A-Goat in order to trim the grounds at a maximum cost of $12,000 per year, say aye.
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 All those opposed, say no.
No.
The ayes have it, the motion passes, and the staff will move ahead.
Thank you. Wonderful job. Wonderful job. Okay, so let's go back now to our final section. Here we go, which is called The Right Kind of Control, as you saw just demonstrated in Elizabeth's brilliant reading. So in order to make all this work, there are three things that you must have. You have to have knowledge of how this system works, which you're getting by attending this training. You have to have a majority on your body who are in favor of civility and this system. And you have to have the personal moxie, the chutzpah, the energy and the drive to put it all into practice. It's not easy. It takes energy. So the chair must control who speaks when. The chair serves as a benevolent dictator, enforcing the rules that the group has chosen. And individual members must seek recognition before speaking. If someone speaks up without being recognized, stop them. If someone speaks out of turn, interrupt them. If someone makes insulting remarks, cut them off. Not everybody has got the nerve and the sense of self to do this, but you need to have it if you're leading a group. And members have a duty to obey the chair's directions. If they disagree, they can't argue back. So what can they do? What can the members do if they disagree with what the chair just said or did?
Appeal?
Right. Appeal or point of order, as may be. So how are you going to control? Well, here are a few thoughts for you. I love this book, The Art of Gathering. If you are organizing anything from a baby shower to a 3-day convention, this book has insights for you. And Priya Parker refers to what she calls generous authority. You're exercising that authority on behalf of the group as a whole. So you want to be businesslike and focused, but show humanity and humor when appropriate. I love this book, Compelling People, by John Neffinger and Matthew Kohut. And they point out that when we first meet people, we judge them on two different criteria. One is how strong are you and how can you get things done? And one is how warm are you? How much do you care? And by implication, can you get things done for me and do you care about me? So the interesting fact is that these qualities are in a hydraulic relationship. So the stronger you appear, the colder you appear. And the warmer you appear, the weaker you appear. A good chair conveys both. A good chair conveys both strength and warmth. Don't be intimidated by anger. Evolutionary psychologists tell us that anger evolved in the service of bargaining to resolve conflicts of interest in favor of the angry individual. We don't like it when somebody's mad, but we need to not be faced down by that. We need to stand up to it. Also, you want to be aware of fear. Fear is a primal necessary emotion. Robert Peckham describes it as a neurobiological process to keep us alive, to keep us alert to threats. And the 5 great fears in Buddhism include fear of public speaking. Members may be too fearful or anxious to speak freely, in which case you need to give them an atmosphere of psychological safety. At the same time, members should have a healthy respect for you as a leader. You must exercise your authority so as to leave no doubt that you will take action if necessary. And if that results in a tinge of fear, in my view, that's okay, as long as you are firm but not harsh. Firm but not harsh. You want to remember that you're like Napoleon crossing the Alps. You know what is going on in the meeting, and you have to lead your troops accordingly. So you want to be brisk and speak crisply. Don't use these kind of wishy-washy phrases. We recommend phrasing things in the positive. If you say, we're not trying to hide anything here, you conjure up the image of hiding. But if you say, we're committed to being transparent, then you're conjuring up the image of transparency. We recommend giving up on the word but. You can always say and. You make a good point, but as soon as you say that but, you've cut off your speaker. We like the word kindly. Please sounds like pleading, but kindly is the iron fist in the velvet glove. And another very useful phrase is very well. You lose an appeal, you feel bad, you just say very well and move on. So we will include this language tips for meeting management in your packet. You can print it out and tape it to your bathroom mirror. And in the morning, when you're going around your routines, you can practice saying these sentences because they sound a little odd. It makes us self-conscious to have to say these things, but they're very, very helpful. You can also practice at the dinner table. The children will kindly pass the potatoes to the right. See what kind of response you get from that. And don't forget, when in doubt, ask the group. You've got to remember this. The chair believes that remarks about UFOs landing at our airfield are not germane and will ask the council to decide whether the council member may continue speaking on this topic. All those who believe the council member may continue, say aye. All those who believe the council member may not continue, say no. The ayes have it or the noes have it. This is a wonderful tool. It's a wonderful, wonderful tool. Robert also says that the chair should never get excited. So I like to remind people of this incident, which happened some years ago in Washington State. This is a real live picture. It's not posed. This city's doing a lot better now, but you don't want to get excited. So why do we need rules? I love this quote from Richard Rohr. Win-lose is the only game most of us understand. We have a constant unspoken need for domination and actually find no enjoyment in win-win situations. Now, I'm sure this is not true of you. I'm sure that everyone on this call is at a higher spiritual level. But as for me, if I'm in a fight, I want to win it. So if you feel yourself hardening into a combat position, you want to lighten up and back off and remember that it's not a fight. So I would like to invite you to subscribe to our monthly e-newsletter if you like this kind of thing. And we have even more insights in the blog. We blog maybe 2 or 3 times a month. It's all on our website. This is our book, which is the only book of its kind. And it's written specifically for you, for elected officials, volunteers, and local governments. So I said, after taking this training, you'll be able to apply the principle that the authority of the group is more important than any single individual, follow best practices for discussion, respond to disorder or difficult people, make motions and amendments, avoid common citizen advisory committee pitfalls, and run effective public comment sessions. And I hope that we've done that. In your materials, you'll find a quick guide for citizen advisory committees, just 2 pages, a quick guide for planning commissions, and I will also send you a link to this publication, Local Government Citizen Advisory Boards by MRSC. So Samuel Johnson, the British author, famously said, "Kindness is within our power, liking is not." You cannot make yourself like your colleagues who are on your commission or committee or council with you, but you can be kind to them. And you must be kind to them because serving on a local government board is like being in a marriage arranged by the citizens. So kindness is the only solution if you're going to be effective. So I said we were here to invigorate you to run effective meetings to serve your community. And I hope we've done that. Does anyone have any last comments or remarks to make? Has this been helpful?
Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. Appreciate your
Good.
time, appreciate your experience and your expertise. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you so much. I will just open it up for any final questions or comments. Anne, did you have anything else for us tonight?
Well, I just think it sounds like you're just doing a fine job, and sometimes under adverse circumstances. Andrew was telling me about your city hall, which really went straight to my heart. So congratulations to you all for keeping it up. Really, what you're doing is so important, and it's clear that you're doing it well. So thank you.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate you being here with us tonight. The next Special Arts Council meeting is October 25th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. The time is now 7:27 and the meeting.
Chair,
Yes.
I have just a couple comments.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Sorry.
No worries. I just wanted to thank you all for taking the time to attend this important training. It really does help meetings run efficiently, and we appreciate you guys taking the time. I know it's 2 hours on a night and everybody's busy and have things, but I hope you got something out of the training and that you found it valuable. I've sat through lots of these trainings and I still pick up things of it. If you guys are interested in a copy of Anne's book, talk to your staff liaison. The city can get you stuff like that if you were interested in having it. My book sits next to me. I reference it all the time. It's got tabs. So it is a handy tool. And if it's something that would be helpful to any of you or the chairs especially, we're happy to help provide those things. We just thank you for the time. We do appreciate it. And now you can adjourn, Chair.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for being here. So as a reminder to board members, stay on camera until the city staff has terminated the Zoom broadcast. Good evening and stay safe and healthy.
And one thing I forgot, thank you so much, Anne. We appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much. And it's a pleasure to work with you all. You're a great group. So I will leave because I'm not a